Twitter has unsealed the documents for its planned initial public offering, and the social media company says it hopes to raise up to $1 billion. Now, since Twitter was created back in 2006, it had actually never turned a profit, according to the documents that we saw today. But on the brighter side, the company does say that revenue is growing. Now, the big question on everyone's mind that still remains unanswered is, where will Twitter list? Twitter did say it plans to use the ticker symbol TWTR. Now, Twitter's path to an IPO should move rather quickly, but there's still many unanswered questions. And joining me here live on the set is CCTV's Liling Tang, who's been following the story all day, and Sam Hamade, who's the Privco founder and CEO. Thank you so much for joining us to talk all things Twitter. Sam, I want to start off with you. You've been trawling through the 300 and something pages of this prospectus this evening. What were some of the things that really stood out for you in Twitter's public filing?
Well, Tracy, I think overall, we were very positive about Twitter's IPO going into this release, and we felt a little bit disappointed. It's like as if we were dressed for a black tie affair, and I show up and it's a frat party. You open it up and you see losses after losses. You see all these expenses they really shouldn't be having for such a simple service. And so it's overall one of disappointment and sort of my favorite child.
Okay, so you were a little let down. What about you, Liling? What were the things that stood out for you in this prospectus today?
Well, I thought what was really revealing was the revenue and net losses. Revenue we saw for the full year of 2012, that was about $317 million. In the first half of this year alone, it was already $250 million. So clearly, something is working. A lot of that growth came from mobile advertising revenue. But the downside, and really discouraging, was the net losses. That grew in the first half of the year by 40% from last year. So kind of worrying, and I think investors will be looking to see if Twitter can sustain its growth and turn a profit sooner than later.
So now one of the things that did come up in the prospectus is the fact that they're going to raise $1 billion. Is that in line with expectations? Is that what the market was sort of looking for?
No, I think that's a floor. I mean, all the information we have on Twitter is it will go public, valuing the company at some $17 billion. And most IPOs sell about 20% of the company. So if you do the math, we're looking at about a $3.5 billion IPO. One of the biggest of the year. This is a big IPO. It's a lot of stock to digest.
Liling, one of the things that we did not get out of the prospectus, which I think everyone was waiting to find out, is where will Twitter list? Will it be right here at the NASDAQ, or will it be the New York Stock Exchange? What are your thoughts on this? Where do you think it'll be at?
I think clearly Twitter has not made a decision yet. And what it does suggest is that perhaps NASDAQ has a stronger fighting chance than we all thought. A lot of people were betting on the New York Stock Exchange, particularly because of NASDAQ's Facebook fiasco last year, the trading glitch we saw in August. And, you know, the thing is, NASDAQ has more to lose here, doesn't it? NASDAQ has more to lose,
Yes.
and already we're seeing a shift among tech IPOs from NASDAQ to NYSE, and you have data to back that up.
We do. Privco's data of IPO tracking. 6 years ago, the New York Stock Exchange had only 6% of U.S. tech IPOs. 6%. 94% to NASDAQ. So far this year, it's 3 to 2, 60% in New York Stock Exchange, you know, 40% NASDAQ. That's since the Facebook IPO flop. And they used to say back in the day when you bought computers, no one ever got fired or lost their job for deciding to go with IBM. And I think in Wall Street right now, people are saying that no one ever got fired right now for choosing the New York Stock Exchange. And so we always thought 90% chance it's going to be New York Stock Exchange. And now we're thinking the fact that they haven't named the exchange, I agree. NASDAQ has a fighting chance. So now's your chance, NASDAQ.
Okay, so NASDAQ has a fighting chance, which means that there are going to be a lot more comparisons to Facebook. What will Twitter CEO Dick Costolo do versus what will Mark Zuckerberg did? Well, one thing that I'm sure that he won't do is go on the roadshow wearing a hoodie, right?
Yeah.
But what are the differences that we're going to see between the two IPOs?
Well, I think number one, just the professionalism of the CEO. Dick Costolo is a real professional. I always said once on the Today Show that Mark Zuckerberg is in over his hoodie, a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar public company, and I think he is. Dick Costolo is very familiar with the process. So I think that's number one. But in general, Twitter knows what all the mistakes that Facebook made. They watched it closely, and they're taking Facebook's playbook for an IPO, and they're doing the opposite of almost everything they did.
And less hype as well, right? I mean, there hasn't been much hype around the Twitter IPO, right, Liling?
Yeah, they have managed the lead up to this very well, and it clearly shows that they're being very cautious about their IPO, taking all sorts of precautions here. So,
Confidential filing.
yes, especially the confidential filing,
Yep,
yes.
everything very hush-hush.
Now, another thing I want to talk about is the timeline. So now we have this public prospectus that's out for everyone to see. What next? When is the roadshow going to happen? When are these shares going live? What sort of timeline are we looking at?
Well, the prospectus is out today, so that means we have 21 days. That's when investors can go over the information, absorb it, make informed decisions, and then
Stay
after that,
up all night.
yeah, stay up all night like yourself, and then the roadshow comes after that, and it could be shorter than the usual roadshows because Twitter is a familiar name already. Now, this is kind of a rushed timeline as well because Twitter presumably wants to get ahead of the Thanksgiving season, get ahead of the holiday season, and also get way ahead of the other big IPO on the horizon, Alibaba, which is expected to list.
Which will also be an enormous IPO.
So good timing for Twitter?
Look, they're not, even for Twitter, they won't move Christmas. Let's put it that way. So Twitter has to IPO November 8th, that Friday. That's our bet. That's what we're willing to bet on.
So we have till November 8th to buy those Twitter shares, right?
Yep, that's when you have to get your bids in. But I would recommend, again, we don't normally say buy or sell, but I think the after Christmas sale is what I would wait for on this particular IPO.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Liling Tang and Sam Hamade from Privco joining us there to talk about Twitter.